Welcome to Go Kaiju Show, where we have a healthy obsession with kaiju, and we are getting ready to enter our 16th year of podcasting. We're at it again. We continued where we left off in August. I am your co-host, Kent. With me is your other co-host.
Yes, I am your other co-host, Jason. How's it going, peeps?
So I remember when we were doing Three Treasures back in August, and I remember saying it then, and I don't know if I had said it even in any other podcast prior to that. We're continuing this trend of mediocrity, if not bad films.
Yeah.
I remember clearly saying last year, 2025 was maybe the worst year for us in terms of podcasting due to, again, the mediocre bad stuff we were covering. We're starting 2026 off, and it's just like, hey, you haven't left. But you know what? Looking at what we kind of have left to cover minus shows, I don't know if they're going to be as many good movies anyways to cover. But you know what? Here's the thing. And for those of you confused as to what the hell I'm even talking about, first and foremost, we're going to talk about Space Monster Wangmagwi today. And also, I want to be perfectly clear before we even discuss this movie. Go check out the history of this film. Check out its production. Check out its reception. We'll talk a little bit about that. There's actually a decent amount of information out there on this, but we're going to talk about a few things with it as we go along in this podcast. The actual history and production and reception and everything kind of just involving this film from a cultural and its place in history context is actually far more interesting than the movie itself. So, like I said, we'll talk a little bit about that, but not most of it. So, before we get into discussing the film, Jason, the usual housekeeping.
Yeah, if you see down below the bar there, make sure to hit the subscribe button as well as smashing the like button as well. And you can also follow us on the following social medias listed down below, as well as subscribing to us on the following streaming platforms there. And you can also watch and listen to both the video and audio versions of our episodes right on our own website at gogokaijushow.com.
All right, so I'm going to give us a synopsis here of Space Monster Wangmagwi here. All right. Aliens from Gamma Star, who I will simply refer to as Gammons moving forward, are bent on destroying mankind so they can occupy Earth for themselves. They send down a human-sized creature called Wangmagwi, who, when it lands in Seoul, will be 100 times larger due to Earth's air pressure affecting the creature. I don't think anything like that is possible, but we'll go with him.
Right.
Ani and Oh Jiang Wang, I hope I'm pronouncing those properly, are our main characters and are set to be wed. But when Wangmagwi shows up and begins destroying Seoul, Oh Jiang Wang is called back to the Air Force to help fight the kaiju. Ani and her mother are devastated that the wedding won't be able to take place, and after making some preliminary plans for the wedding, attempt to evacuate themselves. But their dresses consistently tangle up their legs, and they finally succumb to a fall that allows Wangmagwi to capture and, for the remainder of the movie, hold on to Ani. Wangmagwi continues its rampage, and it seems as if nothing is effective against the kaiju. Even a lame attempt by Oh Jiang Wang to either anger Wangmagwi or to get its attention. Squirrel, a homeless orphan boy, is raiding a rich man's house in search of food during the evacuation. He hears about the monster on the radio and vows to kill it with his knife. After seeing Wangmagwi and surprisingly finding a way to climb the monster and enter its ear, he proceeds to cut a few membranes in Wangmagwi's ears and to urinate in one of them as well. Not kidding. Along the way, two random gamblers make bets on who can stand their ground longer as Wangmagwi approaches them. Eventually, they both leave together. Squirrel escapes Wangmagwi's head cavity and tears off a section of the control device the Gammons attached to Wangmagwi. The Gammons now can no longer control the beast and realize their plan is doomed and get set to destroy the monster. Before they can do that, Oh Jung-won flies in, gets his plane destroyed, and parachutes near Wangmagwi's hand to rescue Ani and Squirrel. A crash jet partially sets Wangmagwi on fire, and the kaiju topples on the ground. Shortly after, it blows up in a fiery explosion. Ani and Oh Jung-won tell Squirrel they'll adopt him as they walk along the coast as the movie comes to a close. I never ever thought.
I'm kind of surprised that you were able to manage to come up with a synopsis for that, because it felt like when watching this movie, and I told you about it via Texas, like it was just so confusing and sort of hard to follow. It's like, aren't they really focusing on the main characters instead of just like a lot of these side characters here? This is what it really felt like, instead of just focusing on the main characters here, because it seemed like that they were vacant or just non-existent at all.
You basically are kind of saying something that I think, and I wrote this in my notes, that I think is maybe the biggest problem of this movie. But before I even talk about that, I want to say that if it's not apparent, and when I first saw this movie, like, I don't know, it was whenever I first bought it from SRS Cinema, like 4 years ago, whenever it was. I found out through my research for this movie is intentionally a comedy. And I got that in a couple spots with those gamblers making their bets. Believe me, we're going to talk more about them in a little bit. I at first, when I saw this film, I thought, is this movie like trying to be a satire or comedy in general? Or does it just have comedy bits? But through my research this time around in preparation for this show, I realized, yeah, this movie by and large is set to not just be a kaiju movie, but it's also set to be a comedy as well. With that being said, this movie, there's a lot of problems with this movie, believe me. I think the biggest problem with this movie actually is its vision. There's no real main idea behind it. I'm not saying that this movie has to have a message or anything like that. I'm just saying that there's no real central characters, even though, yeah, there's Ani, Oh Jung-won, but he actually kind of just comes and goes, honestly. Then there's Squirrel. I mean, one could even argue Squirrel is the main character. Mm-hmm. It's almost as if some amateurs came together at a Seoul movie studio, said, hey, we want to make a monster movie. And, you know, they're like, okay, like Gamera, Godzilla are popular. In fact, they reference King Kong several times in this movie. Mm-hmm. So obviously King Kong is big in South Korea. And they're like, we want to cash in on this. And it's just like, here's some money, go do whatever. And instead of having some sort of pre-production planning and stuff, they're just like, screw that. Let's just start making the thing, and whatever we make is the film itself. There's no focus. There's no vision here.
Yeah, because when you mentioned about being comedy, after you did some research on it a bit more, and before you gave me some of that research and stuff, I didn't even realize it was comedic. I thought it was supposed to be serious. And
I did too. Yep.
Some of these, the two homeless guys, or I think maybe just one homeless guy.
They're both gamblers,
whichever. It's like it just felt very random that they were in there, and they were just focused on a bit too much compared to the main characters. It almost seemed like that they had almost 2 times the focus on them compared to the main characters throughout the entire film. And the film is just a little over 75 minutes, and that sort of tells you something. And then when it comes to this quote-unquote main character, this Nam-kun Wong guy, like he was supposed to be in the military and all that, and I think he's flying a jet. If I remember, it just like this movie sort of confuses the hell out of me when I was watching this, because like, is this some random guy or is it the main character supposed to be in this jet? But and then also when Wangmagwi is out and about, you have a few jets, sprinkled throughout the film, and when Wangmagwi is, rampaging in that, you barely see any jets or military around. You only just maybe see one or two jets just kind of swooping down, and they didn't really do much of shooting with missiles towards Wangmagwi. They just sort of just had them loose. It's like sort of part of their plan, or they're part of the Gammon people, because the Gammon people are just basically humans with handmade
helmets,
very cheap helmets, and like really thin like silver clothing and all that. It was just really confusing, and the like whatever sound effects that they had, it's like it didn't really fit everything well. And I even put in my notes as far as practical effects and what have you. It just felt like it was all the building destruction scenes was filmed in a person's backyard. That's what it felt like to me.
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room for a second, because this, even though it finished filming later than Yongari, it came out 2 weeks before Yongari. So here's some interesting information I found and some comments I have. Like, those involved with the movie Yongari claimed that the crew of Wangmagwi plagiarized their movie. And while Wangmagwi finished filming later than Yongari, it reached theaters a bit before Yongari. As I watched this, I could easily see some parallels between the two films. You have an engaged or newly wedded couple at the center of our story, where the husband is called back into service for his country. A quirky monster, although Wangmagwi is much more quirky, and mischievous boy that gets into the middle of the scrum and ends up being the main female protagonist's brother, or in the case of this movie, an adopted brother by movie's end.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parallels to this movie. And if you listen carefully over the course of this movie, there are some musical cues that are reminiscent of some of the score from Yongari. I'm not saying that it plagiarized music or even got the same composer. In fact, I'm willing to bet that the composers for the two films are different. But like, there are musical notes and cues that I could hear that I'm like, that sounds a bit familiar to what I would hear throughout Yongari.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of music, it's like it was rarely used. It felt like there was no music in this film at all, right up until, was it the 1 hour mark, which is pretty much there's 15 minutes left of the film anyways. And all you hear is maybe some kind of weird sound effect here and there. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, there really was no sound effect for building destruction and the sort. It may come in, but it's almost non-existent at all. And especially when Wangmagwi destroyed like one of those street market signs or something that kind of goes over this one street, you can hear the actual sound of what it was. It just felt like a twig just being broken in half.
Well, and I want to say too, it's very obvious this movie was redubbed by the South Koreans. Mm-hmm. And another interesting thing about this movie was that, okay, this movie comes out. It comes out 2 weeks before Yongari, and it does okay. It's received mixed by both audience and critics. And in fact, one critic even calls it like a hodgepodge, which it really is. Like, that's very apt for this particular film.
Yeah, he gave it a 1 out of 5 stars for that.
Yeah. And when Yongari came out 2 weeks after this movie came out, Yongari is what took South Korea by storm. And in fact, obviously Yongari eventually got an international distribution. Wangmagwi didn't. And because Yongari was so popular, Wangmagwi kind of just disappeared. Like it wasn't a lost film per se. It just kind of like people forgot about it. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of disappeared, but was not lost. And it wasn't until like, I think 2000, it was like in the late, let me check my notes, see if I wrote this down. I want to make sure I potentially get this. I
think it was relatively recent.
It was like within like the last 25 years. Yeah, it was like the very early part of this century. People were kind of thinking about Wangmagwi, and the Korean Film Archive had 3 prints of it, brought it out, and started periodically showing it to the public. I don't know if it was in theaters or what sort of context this film was shown in. And it kind of got sort of a second life in South Korea. And then obviously people here in the States and perhaps elsewhere heard about it. And then eventually, of course, now we're able to see it. And this movie, you can tell, like in some scenes, there's some weird jump cuts. Cause like I remember in one point in the middle of the movie, there's this rampaging moment with Wangmagwi. And when the film cuts from one scene to the start of another scene with Wangmagwi doing some destruction, there's like a half a frame to a frame where Wangmagwi, like blink and you miss it. Like he's off in the distance, but then no, it's like a close up shot of his hand. Like there's some weird edits, and I think there might have been film damage here. Don't quote me on that, but just because of how certain scenes transition at certain spots in this film, I wonder if there is some film damage somewhere. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like this film basically, once Yongari came out, was more or less forgotten by the people of South Korea.
I can sort of see the reason why, because, you know, when you compare the two, obviously the Yongari one had much better story and better story flow and recognizable characters, and as well as kaiju and everything. It was built better compared to Wangmagwi, which it felt like one of those B or C level type of films where it was just made within a week or so. So, whereas Yongari, it had much more funding.
Yeah,
things out.
Yeah, there was one thing I wanted to talk about, and I kind of forgot. We'll just maybe go along here, and maybe I'll remember.
We're probably not going to dive a whole lot into this. Probably not even going to get to an hour of discussion on this.
Well, we'll kind of see how it turns out. But I found it interesting because here's the funny thing. I was thinking several days before I sat down to watch this movie, I'm like, I know there's a tokusatsu movie I watched one time where the movie opens with aliens in weird, like, silver suits. And I thought it might have been like Invasion of the Neptune Men, or like the one Sony Chiba space movie where he plays like a space superhero. And it was kind of funny when I put this movie in and I started, I'm like, I was thinking of this movie. Like, it's just, and it starts off so great. It really does. Like, I remember the first time I watched it, and then even watching it for this film, because I had only seen it one time before, like I said, when I first bought it. And I'm like, kind of pulled in. I'm like, hey, cheap alien spacesuits and stuff. But I'm like, I dig this stuff because I love classic sci-fi films and all that. I love wacky spacesuits. I love outer space stuff. I'm like, all right, like, let's go. And then, you know, the movie, it progresses and you're like, oh. And not only that, the Gammons, considering how frequently we see them at the beginning of this movie, they disappear for a large chunk of this movie.
Yeah, they're really not talked about throughout this entire movie. It's like you don't even have any sort of side story or something else that you didn't have the military finding out, or like one of the characters finding out that there's alien life forms, although they sort of mentioned that there's something in space coming and all that stuff. But that was basically it. You didn't hear any mention of aliens, or you only see the Gammons in the beginning and pretty much the end of the film. That was they were pretty much non-existent except for obviously Wangmagwi there.
Well, and I remember now one of the things I wanted to discuss was that you're saying, I don't know what the main characters are. I don't know what the main point of this here. For a 75-minute movie, because this movie really has no clear vision to it, it ends up feeling long.
It does, yes.
Oh my God. 75 minutes.
I would say when it comes to those two gambling guys, it felt like that was the longest part. It felt like it was a never-ending thing.
Yeah, because again, I didn't remember a ton about it. And when they came on screen, like the first minute or two I was with, I'm like, these guys are kind of funny and stuff. I'm like, I'm digging. And then they kept going. And then they kept going. And I'm going, oh my God, they're not going to stop. And I don't know how, I want to say it went at anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes.
It
no
felt
joke.
More than that.
But I think it actually was closer to 10 because I was paying attention a little bit to the timestamp. And I think it was closer to 10 minutes they were on there initially. And then the guys come back again. And it's a similar shtick. It's not, thankfully, not as long, but still, they overstayed their welcome. Because it's like, look, do this thing for like no more than a minute and a half and get on with it.
And then when they sort of realize, oh, this is taking too long, then they bring in the kid named Squirrel. For whatever reason. Then he pretty much overshadows them and kind of pretty much takes over the whatever remaining parts of the movie is, and then. And it's funny enough when he has a knife, cuts like the membrane. You would think, after cutting one of them, you would think Wangmagwi would lose his equilibrium or something.
He lost his hearing. He made him deaf. Like Squirrel says a couple times, he made him deaf. So apparently, I guess that those membranes are supposed to be the eardrum.
Or something of the sort. And then just going through his nose with the really thick
nose hair,
hairs and everything.
And then the one thing I knew I remembered when I came back to this film was him urinating in Wangmagwi's ear. Like the first time I saw that, I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I was sort of saying that to myself too. It's like, what the hell is going on here? It was just, that's probably one of the craziest things I've ever seen so far in a kaiju film is someone or some kid urinating in a monster's head.
I know. It's just like, that had never happened prior to this movie, and I 100% guaranteed it has not happened since, and probably never will. It's just, I watch, I'm like, there's no way he's peeing in his ear.
Or in his head somewhere.
And you know what's so stupid? Because obviously, like I said, King Kong is mentioned a couple times in this movie. And obviously, Wangmagwi holding on to Ani basically the whole movie, and she doesn't do jack shit after the initial 15 minutes of this movie, is an homage to King Kong. However, it contradicts what the Gammons said earlier in the movie, where they were saying Wangmagwi will destroy the earth. He will get his energy by eating people and, continue to destroy the world so that we can inhabit it.
Whatever.
He never once eats a person. He steps on a guy, but
he never really destroyed it. He didn't really destroy much of buildings for that matter. Maybe just I would say max a block. That's what it looked like to me.
The destruction in this movie is fairly minimal. There are a few sequences that are pretty decent with some decent model work. but there's just not a lot of it. They cut away from the destruction scenes pretty decently to do some stupid people thing. And then you talk about another piece of scatological humor. Later on, these people are in a shelter area.
Or a high-rise building.
Something like that. And then the movie decides to focus on this guy who's got to take a crap. And I'm not joking. The movie focuses on this guy who's got to take a crap. He's spending 2 minutes or so looking for someone with a newspaper so he can go to a corner and take a crap.
Not only that, but also a woman, I think, giving birth too.
Yeah, but they spend more time on this guy taking a crap because they come back to him several times and he's making all these weird faces as he's trying to push a poop out. And then eventually, like later when we're getting closer to the end, something happens and he accidentally sits in it. Like he loses his balance and sits in it. Mm-hmm. And it like you were saying earlier, why are these people here? They're not main characters. They contribute nothing to this movie except, look, I consider myself, a person who can be very immature and someone who would be willing to say and do things either for a podcast or a movie that I think are funny and stupid. But I would never do anything like what they did here. I would not have anybody urinate in a monster's ear, let alone just take a moment and be like, look, this is funny. We got to have a guy looking for a newspaper so he can take a poop. And we're going to keep coming to this guy. And eventually, once he drops the loaf, he's going to sit in because he's going to lose his balance, you see? Like, look, and part of it is kids' movies, too, that I've been seeing over the years because I got 2 kids. I am so sick of scatological humor now because a lot of kids' movies – and I kid you not, when my kids were home over Christmas break, we had back-to-back nights where the kids picked movies, and each one of those movies had a character that had a farting issue. I am so sick of that garbage. It's not funny. Maybe for kids it is. And look, I'm an immature piece of garbage. Like, I find certain stupid things to be hilarious, but to me, it's just like farting and poop jokes and stuff like that. Like, that's not funny. Like, to me, it's annoying. I just roll my eyes at it anymore. And I think part of the problem, too, with this movie is not just because they throw everything at the wall and are like, we're going to put that in our movie. They are trying to appease to almost every demographic. They're trying to appeal to parents. They're trying to appeal to like people in their 20s and teens. They're trying to appeal to kids. They're trying to do everything. And they're like, well, the kids are going to like some of the poop stuff. And the guy like falls and sits in his own crap. And then it's like, oh, like, let's have a pregnant woman giving birth. Why? Because we fucking can. Like, it's like, we can do it. It's going to go in the movie. And I'm just sitting there thinking, I understand this is a comedy, but even then, for a comedy movie, supposedly to some level, there's no focus. There's no main point that we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah, it was just sort of all over the place, and just didn't really know what it was really doing. It just felt like it was just, thought of one person one day. Is like, oh, I want to make like a monster movie that's sort of like comedy, but really kind of isn't. And then I'm going to try to focus on as much people as I can. There's really not much any main characters here. We'll just kind of wing it and then just have some guys, shitting in an alleyway or shelter, and just have guys trying to gamble.
One guy's gambling his wife away.
Yeah. And then we'll have a kid just get in the monster's head and then piss in the monster's head.
Can we talk about how Wangmagwi is defeated here? Because
I don't even, to be honest with you, I don't even know how it went.
The Gammons realized after Squirrel pulled some sort of cable off the control panel on Wangmagwi's back that they couldn't send signals to Wangmagwi anymore. Therefore, Wangmagwi was essentially useless. So they blew him up. But here's the thing. Like you said earlier, humanity did not realize that this was a creature controlled by aliens from another planet or galaxy, wherever. And not only that, Ozhangwan and humanity in general doesn't come out heroic here. They don't destroy Wangmagwi. The Gammons destroy him because they're just like, screw it. We can't control him. We're abandoning this mission. What? Like, I mean, there's just so much that's wrong with this. Like, you're space aliens who are able to travel from planet to planet through outer space. So therefore, like, you don't think your spaceship is at least powerful enough to, like, intimidate, scare, maybe even do some destruction itself. You don't have a backup plan of any sort. Once one thing goes bad, you say, to hell with it, we're abandoning.
Like, pretty much their plans was ruined by a kid just trying to find a way to climb down the monster and just, took out one of the antenna, even though it was connected still by this wired box or whatever it was. And also for whatever reasons, like, they lost connection, even though it's still connected. They have this long wire that was just shoved into this box. You would still think that they would have some sort of connection, unless it was, if Squirrel, for whatever retarded reason, just decided just cut the wire in order to just fall down or something from the monster.
I have a retractable extension cord hanging from the ceiling in my garage. So, like, right now I put a battery maintainer in my car. I pull the thing down partway and I plug in the maintainer to maintain my battery. Or at times when I've power wash my own car with my own power washer, electric power washer, pull the thing down. I've even at times had to use other power tools where I've had to pull the whole thing down and it's sitting in my driveway. I pull the damn thing out and it works. And then I tug the thing again, it retracts and it still works. Apparently their cable is not as strong as my cable to just plug in my maintainer in the garage. Like,
it really makes you wonder how they're able to travel in space and everything.
First and foremost, it's deeply unsatisfying to see Wangmagwi get taken out like that, because your movie villains do it themselves. Mm-hmm. And it makes your hero, who maybe is Oh Jung-won, maybe? Well, the only heroic thing he does is he unintentionally gets his jet destroyed, but he parachutes out, and he's partially lucky enough to get close enough to Wangmagwi's hand to get Squirrel and Ani and rescues him. Okay, relatively heroic, but there's nope. They talk about.
And this is also where it's like you will wonder too, where the fuck is the military at? They're not doing anything. Hardly anywhere in this entire movie, except for maybe a couple stock footage of jets sprinkled in the movie, and maybe see one or two jets flying in front of Wangmagwi, and that was basically it.
There was one scene, and it's like maybe 3/4 of the way through the movie, where Oh Jung-won is back at like the base, and one of his commanding officers said something about like a laser, like I forget the exact name he said, but he was saying we're gonna have to use like the super laser or something like that. And then he says if that doesn't work, we might have to use nuclear weapons. Okay.
You don't even need nuclear weapons against
the super laser was not even used.
That too.
It's just like they're trying to create all this drama and like tension in the audience. They don't even get to this laser part, and it doesn't matter because the Gammons destroyed him. Because the Gammons are like, whatever.
And he pretty much had the kid, take out the antenna for whatever reason. Oh, it made the Gammons connection with it useless.
It just nothing. Look, I'm not saying that this is a movie that would have been gold, but all you had to do was you know, like make a few focus changes. First and foremost, get rid of the kid pissing in the air. If you want to keep the kid in that part, fine, but get rid of the pissing in the air.
Also shorten the gamblers.
Shorten that up.
Yeah.
Don't have the kid pissing in the air. Forget the woman giving birth.
Focus on the main characters.
Taking a crap. Make your main male more heroic, and then like have Ani be more productive as well, because basically once she's picked up by Wangmagwi, she more or less is fainting, or passed out, I should say, for the vast majority of the film. And then her mother is trying to follow Wangmagwi to get her. We have no clue as to whatever happened to the mother. And they're it's just, again, folks, just look up the history of this movie, because the history of this movie, its production, its reception, and just kind of its cinema history, that all of that's so much more interesting than this film is.
Probably the last thing I want to touch upon, since we haven't really gotten around to it. What do you think of the design of Wangmagwi itself?
Okay. You're forcing me to do something here. Sorry for those listening to the audio version. Maybe Jason will put this up as our title or something, even on the audio version. Okay, look at this.
It looks fairly menacing. I can give...
You know who did this?
Whoever made the poster art.
You know who did this?
Who?
Don't think too hard. Don't think too hard. Who did this?
I'd probably say someone that we know, and I'd probably would say Bob Eccleston.
No, but Matt Frank.
Oh, really?
Matt Frank did this. What Matt Frank did for this home video release cover of Space Monster Wangmagwi is significantly better and shows most of the potential that this creature could have had the people of this film spent more time creating it. The mouth doesn't move or anything. It looks like the actor's wearing pajama onesies. That's what it looks like to me. And the tongue moves, and it made me think of Real Dirty Thoughts. I bet it did. I was not proud of that, but those thoughts crept into my mind. This poster shows there was potential, and they didn't show that potential.
It's basically like a bait and switch sort of scenario.
I don't know what the original one looked like. That could be maybe lost to time, perhaps. But what Matt Frank did for that, I was getting ready. I'm like, all right, like I know it's a cheap Korean movie, but come on, let's bring it. And then I saw it, and I'm like, son of a bitch. Like it's like it really had no kind of unique type of appearance. It just felt more like a human looking type of creature. The only very humanoid, yes.
Interesting thing is the head, but the overallness, when you kind of see it up close, it's like could have done better.
I disagree with you strongly. I do think it's unique. It's uniquely bad.
Yeah. Didn't quite see that there.
Mic drop. I mean, and look, I'm going to just say this. Because not counting the Kaiju Palooza, which was basically one giant commentary piece.
Yeah. Of good movies.
The last show we did was Three Treasures, as I said at the top. And I complained an awful lot about how boring that movie is. This movie's pretty boring too. And I'm just going to spoil things here for those who probably remember my score for Three Treasures. The score I am giving for this movie is lower than what I gave for Three Treasures. However, I would rather still watch Wangmagwi over Three Treasures, because at least this movie, despite the fact it does feel long, it is technically a shorter film. So I don't feel like I'm wasting as much of my life, my precious life.
Although for me, I wasted probably the worst 50 cents of my
Oh, tell them about your
allowance.
situation.
I told Kent that since I didn't have the movie on hand, Blu-ray or DVD form, so I was going to watch it on Amazon Prime, which they had it available for rent. And it was available for, was it $1.50 of what they said, but they gave me a discount of around 50 cents. 50 cents for this movie.
They gave you a discount of $1.
Yeah, pretty much. And just after watching that movie, it was like, that is the worst 50 cents that I have ever spent so far.
And I told Jason, even before he started watching, because he told me about this, I said, look, it's either going to be the best 50 cents you ever spent, or you're going to realize, hey, I didn't waste that much money on a garbage movie. So I said, you're going to
50 cents I'm never going to get back.
But you know what? It's most of Prime's movie rentals are like $5. Even at its regular price, $1.50, it's almost as if they were screaming, please rent me. Like, but it's like 50 cents. Come on. Like, okay, yeah, the movie's real bad, but I wouldn't have been, to me, here's the thing. And I think I've said this on the show before, over the last 4 to 5 years, when we watch bad stuff, and unfortunately we're going to watch more bad stuff, and I hate it. We do it for you guys. To me, I get more upset about wasting my time on bad stuff than I do wasting the money. Yeah, the money but money you can always like get back. Time you can't. So the 150 minutes total that I've spent watching this movie twice over the last however many years, that's time I'm not getting back. You're talking, let's see, that's in 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours of my life I'm not getting back. Okay, yeah. So I spent, I don't know, what was it? I spent anywhere between $25-$30 on this movie when it came out on SRS. Okay, sure, it was definitely overpriced, but I'm more mad about losing time of my life because I can get $30 back. The 2.5 hours, I can't. That's gone. Like,
at least you would be $30 richer, though.
Well, and look, let me just say this, though. There is a kind of a nice little perk with the Blu-ray. I don't think it was probably offered for your streaming thing.
Probably not, no.
But there is there is a nice commentary track on here, and a couple other little extras, but the commentary track, I briefly listened to that near the start of the film, and it sounded real good. I didn't continue listening to it. I only listened like maybe 2 minutes of it, but it's real good. Like, I will watch the movie again with that commentary at some point. I'm hoping that they cover a lot of the history that I even found in researching this movie, because again, this is definitely something that if you're a hardcore kaiju fan and you kind of like learning about the history of films and kind of how they were received and produced and all that, this movie is, I think, one of the more interesting ones that I've read about in quite a while. But yeah, I'm just going to say that there is a reason why Yongari had international distribution. and I remember listening to a podcast back in late 2012, and this podcast, everybody on it, from the host to the guests on it, were saying it was like not only the worst thing that they'd ever seen, but probably the worst kaiju movie that they'd ever watched. And when I saw Yongari for the first time, I found it on Netflix. And I watched and I go, yeah, it's not like the greatest movie you're ever going to see, but this is a lot of fun. And yeah, there's problems with that movie. And we covered that movie a long time ago. There's definitely problems with that movie. But that is so much better than what you get here with Wangmagwi. It's so much better than what you get with some of the other stuff we've covered over the last year and a half.
I got one challenge for you, or a question here. Which of the two movies would you rather prefer watching more? The North Korean Polgassery or Wamagwi?
Two deliciously bad films.
Yeah.
Like, Polgasari is a better made film, but it drones on in quite a few spots. Wangmagwi is amusing on some level. I would say I probably would watch. I would probably prefer Polgasari.
Same here, because I think that obviously when comparing the two, the story's much more fleshed out in that, and you have the main characters pretty much throughout the entire film in that film compared to Wamagwi here, which it just felt like it was just a complete mess.
Yep. So I think we're both just kind of exasperated by the whole experience. Let's go into final thoughts and just close this sucker out. It's under an hour. I think right now we're at like 35, 40 minutes.
Well, according to my timer, since I started recording before we started here, it's at around 46, 45 minutes. So
going to be probably the shortest show we've ever had.
Yeah, so far. From what I've written down for my final thoughts is kind of what I pretty much mentioned earlier here. It says the film seemed like it didn't know what to do with the human aspect, not focusing on the main characters, but just unknown characters. Felt like I was watching something that was meant for a stage play. Military was really nowhere to be found during Wamagwi's rampage. Sound effects was sorely lacking where it mattered, along with the music. And then the suit of Wamagwi was pretty basic, not quite appealing. Building sets were pretty good. However, the destruction scenes felt like they were filmed in someone's backyard. And then lastly, space aliens don't look too convincing for me. And my final grade for this one is a D-.
D-. Okay, so I got kind of a decent length final thought here. Before I do some verbal defecating on the movie, I want to give Space Monster Wangmagwi some credit, being that other than a lost 1962 movie, it is the first true Korean kaiju movie made. It makes it a special experiment in kaiju filmmaking lore in Korean science fiction films. Unfortunately for it, it was immediately overshadowed by Korean science fiction. It was overshadowed by Yongari. I really messed something up there. And it was overshadowed by Yongari, who many people, critics alike, saw as a superior film. Yongari also saw international distribution, while Space Monster Wangmagwi was looked upon, as one critic said at the time, a hodgepodge of a film. It quickly became so obscure that many believed it to be lost until the Korean Film Archive released 3 known prints of the movie. Space Monster Wangmagwi enjoyed a bit of a revival in the early part of the 21st century with occasional viewings of the movie across South Korea. While not really celebrated amongst film scholars, some have looked at the movie as a bit of a cultural artifact, using certain metaphors to illustrate moments of the people of South Korea that the people of South Korea faced during the Korean War. That's giving this movie way too much credit.
Yeah.
But now on to my thoughts. I think it's very telling that South Koreans gravitated towards Yongari rather than Space Monster Wangmagwi. I, too, will easily state that Yongari is a better film in every conceivable way than Space Monster Wangmagwi. The movie, despite trying to cram in so many different elements to please a wide audience, ends up pleasing no one. It becomes very obvious as I watch the movie how the movie was segmented in order to appease a different demographic within the audience. Not only does the result fail, it damages the movie's pacing and makes the story and character work a waste of a person's time, especially given that the Gammons ultimately are the ones that destroy Wangmagwi, which is a damn shame given that the movie starts off so promising and ends up being incredible dull as it rolls on. Characters are bland stereotypes of their gender and age. Ani is a helpless, fragile bride-to-be. Squirrel is a mischievous boy. And Oja Wan is a stoic male soldier that saves the aforementioned characters right before Wangmagwi dies, making him, in a small way, heroic. The gamblers were funny in the first minute or two, but their on-screen time is beyond annoyance. The plot is very basic, which isn't to say it's bad, but with how the story was written, it becomes incredibly uninteresting and stilted. The model work is pretty decent, but the destruction of those models leaves a lot to be desired. For the general kaiju fandom, Space Monster Wangmagwi really should only be a curiosity, only to be celebrated only for its historical relevance in the annals of kaiju movies and Korean kaiju films. It's not very well made, even though there was some effort here. But at best, this is a movie only to be watched every 5 or so years. Otherwise, for most kaiju fans, one viewing is plenty to simply be able to say you watch an obscure, thought-to-be-lost South Korean kaiju film. And I, too, gave it a D-.
All right.
All right. So, with that being said, we will be coming back. When did we say? The 31st?
Well, it's not going to matter anyway since we're not live or anything. So we'll just kind of go by whatever time is best for us. Because I think, was it next week? You guys are out of state for.
Well, we're around, but we're leaving Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Okay.
So, we're going to be out of state.
Yeah. So, and I think we said that we were going to continue the week after. I think.
Yeah.
Was it the
31st, I believe. Yeah. 31st or the 1st. And we're going to be covering a movie that I know is going to break the streak. It's, again, not the greatest movie ever, but it's a lot better than most of what we've been covering, The Valley of Gwanji. And then, unfortunately, we kind of dip our toe back into the garbage bin with Reptilicus after that. So, no rest for the weary here. So,
yeah.
But at least there is a mild reprieve with Valley of Gwanji. And that's something Jason and I have been talking over a little bit. We will eventually, I think, here within the first few months, begin watching a tokusatsu series. We're just not exactly sure what that will be yet.
One of the Super Sentais or Kamen Rider shows.
Yeah, so we're doing the next 2 movies. Like I said, Gwanji and Reptilicus. Probably after that is maybe when we'll start doing a series. And depending upon the series, we're either going to do it in blocks or we're going to watch it all and cover it all in one show. But if it's Sentai or even one of the Kamen Rider ones, chances are we're probably going to have to cut it up into segments. Because the Sentai ones are usually decently long. And like Kamen Rider V3, if we were to go that route, which is the direct sequel of the original, that one, if it was like 35 or 39 episodes, I forget.
I think we had something else. I think we had one of the fairly recent Kamen Rider.
I think Geats.
Ones, which I know, Geats or something like that, because I know those are like fairly moderate as far as the amount of episodes, because like today's tokusatsu stuff usually kind of run around in the 20s as far as episode count.
What I got on my notes is we have yet to cover the Japanese version of King Kong versus Godzilla. I think you have that now.
Yeah, I've got the was it the Criterion Collection, that big booklet, which does have the Japanese version, because I know a long time ago you had like a bootleg of the original Japanese version, and I thought you gave that to me, but for whatever reason, I don't know, you actually got rid of it, or if I had it in my possession somewhere, like it just got lost in time or something of the sort, but at least I got it now. So we're not exactly sure how we're going to do the shows, but one thing we could do potentially is either after Reptilicus do King Kong versus Godzilla,
and then talk about a show, or start a show after Reptilicus and then do some other shows like King Kong versus Godzilla, or some commentaries. Like we want to finish the Jurassic World commentaries. That's an idea. Or do some other movies as off screen we are doing a show. So that's an idea as well, to where we could work on a show and then either do it in large chunks or do it all together after a month or two, however long it takes us to get through a show. So we're not exactly sure how we're going to approach that just yet, but it's an idea, and we'll kind of let everyone know once we get closer to all that.
Yep. And before we close out here, if you haven't done so, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below, and make sure to smash the like button as well. And you can follow us on the following social medias, show them below on the bar there, as well as subscribing to us on the following available streaming platforms there. And you can watch and listen both video and audio versions of our podcast episodes right on our own website there at gogokaijushow.com.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
And we'll catch you guys next time.